All right, good morning. So we're back at the Tour de France. Sorry I didn't do one of these yesterday. So this is going to be stage 11 of the tour, 11 of 21 for those who don't know. Again, we are talking about the Tour de France, talking about watercolor painting, talking about whatever random thoughts pop into my head. One of the thoughts that I've been dealing with and why I didn't paint yesterday was my wife has been in need of a kidney transplant, and I've been her paired donor, and now that is finally coming to happen. So we actually spent 12 hours yesterday, including the drive time to the hospital, getting all of the final preoperative things dealt with, final testing, that kind of stuff. Although we've been tested from here to tomorrow in preparation for this. So that kind of made for a long night, and I just didn't get one of these videos done. So today's is one of the last flat stages for the sprinters before we go back to the mountains, and I think actually the last true sprinter stage won't be until the last day on the Champs-Élysées, the traditional finish of the tour every year. So this is Laganous from Groupama FDJ, trying to go on a sole breakaway. I would say a vain, glorious attempt here, because, like I say, it's the last chance for the sprinters. Yesterday was also flat, and I mean flat stage, incredibly flat. And in that stage, Peter Sagan lost his green jersey again, back to Sam Bennett, the Irish sprinter. And so Sagan is clearly going to want to get it back. Although the one advantage he has over all the other sprinters is he's a decent climber. So he can pick up sprint points on mountain stages, particularly when those sprint points are after the first climb of the day, like tomorrow. When they go over a Cat 1 or Cat 2 climb prior to the sprint point for bonus or intermediate sprints, and they give out points in the green jersey competition. But there's a lot more points on offer at the finish line than at the intermediate sprint. So Sagan beat Bennett across the sprint point, but Bennett beat Sagan across the finish line, so that was enough to switch the lead back. So just tightening the piece. I'll label the back of this off camera. What is today? Today is the 9th. So now that I've laid the ink out, and one of the things you want to think about is see how this has a nice visual. All the images is loaded to the side. It's not straight on. There's some real strong diagonal lines to move your eye across the picture plane. Yeah, these are all things you need to think about in building your painting. What is the compositional element? What's going to make the painting more dynamic, more interesting? So rather than having this rider in the center, the road straight ahead, I'm looking for an image where the road bends, you set things off center. I'm also thinking about the color palette in this one, which of course will become evident once I turn the air conditioner off so you can hear me. So the color palette will become more evident as I start painting. And I think I've said this before, in fact I'm sure I have, but I always work with watercolors at the very least, but also with my paint sticks, light to dark, just because I want to be able to keep the colors as clean, as pure as possible, because clearly, color is a big part of what I do. As you look at the other images here, other paintings here on YouTube. So you want to keep these colors clean and pure, and one way to do that is to make sure you don't end up mixing your lights and your darks, your warm and your cools, unless you intend to do that. Sometimes you want that browny gray that is generated by doing that. So I'm working through, there are no oranges, so I did the yellows and then the flesh tones and the reds. And see, this painting is going to be dominantly cool. So every time I paint the French flag, which this is Groupama FUG, a French team, and their flag, their kit mimics the French flag. I always have to go bleu, blanc, and rouge to remember, sorry, terrible French pronunciation, to remember the order. Because we're red, white, and blue, but they're blue, white, and red. And that because this right here, these two chevrons represent the flag on their kit. And I like, I'm only putting in as much detail as necessary. And so for those who are up on the sport, they'll recognize this kit immediately. So I don't have to carefully write the team name on it. And they've had this kit now for a couple of years. Kit being what the racing uniform is called. And that may just be because I listen to a bunch of Brit broadcasters. And kit is slang for your outfit, your clothes. So now we'll move into the landscape part of this. I'll come back and do the sky blue later. And so this is also another very flat stage, like I said, so there's not a lot of there's flat ground, as one would expect on a flat stage through a flat section of France. Now frequently, and to a certain degree yesterday, when you have flat stages, you can get strong crosswinds. Yesterday they raced along the coast, and they expected, when the course was discussed, they expected some pretty serious crosswinds that day. They didn't really materialize, but crosswinds will frequently split the peloton apart, and it can catch people out, and you can lose serious amounts of time, sometimes even more time than you lose in the mountains. But those did not materialize. But still, there were some serious splits going on a regular basis, although in the end of the day, I don't think anybody really lost any major time. But they were caused by wrecks. If you go to my blog, theartofcycling.blogspot.com, you can see all the paintings. You can see all the paintings from the tour up until today. And later today, you'll be able to see those. Duh. And you'll see some of the aftermath of the crashes. I, as a rule, don't paint the crashes. This is a hard enough sport, and racers have died in these crashes in the past. It's fortunately very infrequent, but I just don't celebrate the crashes. So you can see that little bit of red is really being popped now by all of this green foliage that we're putting into it, into the painting. And so your eye naturally looks for the opposite color, the color complement. So when you have a lot of one of the complementary pairs, like in this case a lot of the green, then that red becomes a much stronger element. So you can see as I've been painting, what was these little flits of red that were, you could notice them to be sure, but they were not as dominantly apparent as they are now due to all of the Whoopsie, that is not the color I wanted. I missed by a cell. So the colors I'm working with, these are from Richson Art. They're called St. Petersburg. Clearly they're cake watercolors, which is sort of a slightly more hardened watercolor than the tube watercolors. But I find them easier to work with for this application at least. And then I mix, as you can see, water and then mix the colors. And the mixing is how you get your saturation, the intensity of your color. As one would expect, the less water you put in, the more intense the color is. So it's that balancing act. So if you want a pastel, you just leave more pigment, more water, less pigment. And of course, if you want a bright color, the exact opposite. So we'll lay the sky in back here now. And another thing is the direction of your stroke, your paintbrush action, will help inform the piece. So that's part of the reason why I'm twisting the paper around. So now we just need to lay this roadway in. And like this black I've created is made from Dioxin Purple and Hooker's Green. And it just gives me a more chromatic black. Just a little more attractive. I've always found that the blacks you buy are just kind of a dead color. They just don't have much chromatic quality to them. All right, so you can see all of this artwork and my other artwork at gregleach.com, and that's GREIGLEACH.com. And again, the blog spot is theartofcycling.blogspot.com. I'm also Art of Cycling on Twitter, and Greg's Art, that's GREIGSART, on Instagram. So check those out if you feel so inclined. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Now here, let me position this a little better for you. There you are. Thanks for taking the time to look.